A supercarrier rips through Caribbean waters. USS Gerald R. Ford, CVN-78. 109,000 tons of American steel moving like a knife toward Venezuela's coastline. Her escorts fan out in a defensive screen. Aegis destroyers, missile cruisers, nuclear attack submarines prowling beneath the surface. 12 nautical miles. That's the line. Cross it and you've violated sovereignty. Stay outside and it's international waters. Freedom of navigation, lawful operations, innocent passage. The difference between peace and war? 6 miles of blue water. In Caracas, the Venezuelan defense minister appears on state television. Late night. Emergency broadcast. The message roars across every channel. Mobilization. 200,000 personnel, regulars, militia, air defense batteries, scrambled to alert status within hours. The claim explodes across social media. A U.S. warship has entered Venezuelan waters. Did it happen? Or is this the opening move in a chess game where both sides know the rules, but only one will blink first? Keep watching. Here's what you need to understand. Under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, every coastal nation controls a territorial sea extending 12 nautical miles from its baseline. Inside that ring, sovereignty. Foreign warships can transit, but they must move continuously and expeditiously. No loitering, no launching aircraft, no intelligence collection. That's innocent passage. From 12 to 24 miles, the contiguous zone. The state can enforce customs and immigration law, but the water remains international. Out to 200 miles, the exclusive economic zone, the EEZ. Resources belong to the coastal state, but the water? Still high seas for navigation. The media loves to blur these lines. Latin American waters, Caribbean waters, near Venezuela. Headlines compress geography until 200 miles sounds like 12, until operating legally sounds like invasion. Two more terms matter tonight. ROE, rules of engagement. What a crew can do, when they can do it, and under what circumstances they're cleared to fire. CIWS, close-in weapon system. The last-ditch phalanx gun that shreds incoming missiles and fast boats at point-blank range. If you hear CIWS firing, someone already made a catastrophic mistake. Now you're speaking the language. Now you can see what's really happening when a supercarrier drifts within a morning sail of an adversary's coast. Will they hold the line? Late summer. U.S. Southern Command expands patrols across the Caribbean. Publicly, counter-narcotics, counter-crime, interdicting cartel shipments moving bulk cocaine by sea. The hardware tells a different story. Destroyers, Coast Guard cutters, a fast attack submarine. P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft circling 24/7. And now, the crown jewel, the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group shifting into the region. Washington's logic. Disrupt transnational criminal organizations, pressure corrupt officials, assert freedom of navigation. Caracas's response. You don't hunt drug smugglers with a supercarrier. A CVN-78 carries 75 aircraft. FA-18 Super Hornets. EA-18G Growlers for electronic warfare. E-2D Hawkeyes for airborne early warning. That's not a law enforcement platform. That's a deterrence signal. A message written in 100,000 tons of nuclear-powered steel that says, we can strike anywhere, anytime. The operating environment heats up. Fast boats, go-fasts, swarm shipping lanes. Fishing vessels crowd interdiction zones. Unmarked craft appear on radar, maneuver aggressively, then vanish. Gray zone operations. Smugglers, paramilitaries, state-sponsored harassment. Nobody knows until it's too late. Then, the messaging spiral begins. U.S. officials emphasize lawful operations in international waters. Venezuelan officials warn of guerrilla resistance against any incursion. The press highlights two numbers: the size of the U.S. flotilla and the approximately 200,000 Venezuelan personnel moved to high alert. Two stats. 1. Collision course. What happens next? Here's where routine patrols become crisis. Over recent weeks, U.S. forces report multiple maritime interdictions. Suspected drug smuggling boats running dark, running fast. Some refuse to stop. Some turn aggressive. Engagements go kinetic. Pursuit. Disabling fire. Airstrikes from helicopters when small vessels threaten U.S. crews. Casualty counts vary. The pattern doesn't. Tempo increases. Incidents multiply. Videos go viral. One flashpoint ignites. A Venezuelan flagged fishing vessel operating near the boundary zones. Venezuelan sources allege harassment, an attempted boarding inside the EEZ, an attack on sovereignty. U.S. statements frame it as lawful interdiction outside territorial waters. In crowded seas, where fishing grounds nudge smuggling routes, it doesn't take much. Radio chatter, phone videos, fragmentary reports. They merge into one viral claim. They entered our waters. Another trigger. Fast boat swarms. The same profile used by smugglers. Low, fast, hard to track. Looks identical to tactics a hostile state might use to harass a warship. On a radar scope, at night, in choppy seas, a cluster of returns closing to a few thousand yards looks like the opening minutes of an attack. U.S. ships respond with graduated measures. Bridge-to-bridge hails, blue lights, loud hailer warnings, maneuvering, warning shots if necessary. To an onlooker, or a fisherman, that reads as aggression. Now, pile on the supercarrier, the world's largest warship operating within striking distance of Venezuela's coast. Headlines compress space. Carrier near Latin America becomes carrier off Venezuela becomes warship in Venezuelan waters, even when the distinction is 15 miles of open ocean. There's no confirmed evidence of a U.S. crossing inside the 12-mile limit, but the feeling of encroachment, fueled by kinetic interdictions and a massive gray hull on the horizon, ignites the next phase. How does Caracas respond? When a carrier strike group arrives, it brings options. An air wing can surveil thousands of square miles, deter provocations, and, if ordered, strike. Even if the mission is counter-narcotics, the signal to regional capitals is unmistakable. Washington is ready to escalate pressure quickly. Caracas answers with its own signal. State media broadcasts footage. Air defense batteries repositioning to coastal sites. SA-6, SA-11, S-300 missile systems going active. Patrol aircraft, Su-30 Mk2 flankers, sortie from airfields. Naval units scramble. Militia formations drill with AK-47s and 12.7mm DSHK heavy machine guns across coastal provinces. Pro-government commentators frame the carrier's presence as regime change. Opposition voices warn that spiraling confrontation will crush an already fragile economy. At sea, the choreography turns meticulous. The carrier's escorts, Arleigh Burke-class destroyers packing Tomahawk cruise missiles and SM-6 interceptors, form a moving perimeter. P-8 maritime patrol aircraft orbit. Coast Guard cutters focus on law enforcement intercepts. The U.S. message: freedom of navigation, lawful operations. Period. The Venezuelan message: zero tolerance for violations, readiness to respond. These signals meet in the places miscalculation loves. Narrow straits, fishing grounds, oil platforms. Nighttime. Weather squalls that turn radar into static. A group of fast skiffs closing too near the carrier's defensive screen. A cutter pursuing a smuggler who darts toward the 12-mile arc. A Venezuelan patrol craft racing to shadow a destroyer that's closer than expected. Each is a discrete event, until social media fuses them into warship enters Venezuelan waters. Here's the paradox. Both sides can be telling the truth. The U.S. never crosses inside 12 nautical miles. Venezuelan units legitimately feel threatened by maneuvers just beyond it. The difference is a few miles of water and interpretation. With the carrier in theater, the cost of a misread just went up. What comes next? The order rips across Venezuelan airwaves. Massive mobilization. Nearly 200,000 personnel from the armed forces and the Bolivarian militia surge to conduct large-scale exercises and defend sovereignty. On paper, these drills serve multiple purposes: deter the U.S., reassure domestic audiences, test whether logistics can sustain rapid deployment, fuel, ammunition, communications, medical support, command links across air, sea, and land forces. Visually, the mobilization tells its own story. Footage floods social media. Air defense radar vans rolling onto headlands. Militia formations drilling with older small arms. Patrol boats bristling with crew-served weapons at piers. Coastal artillery repositioned to cover approaches. The message to the U.S. Navy: any close pass will be met with mass. Not just regular units, but a web of militia and security forces that raise the risk of crowded, confusing encounters near that 12-mile ring. But mobilization costs. Pull soldiers from barracks and factories, fuel convoys, activate reserves. You burn resources fast. If the U.S. doesn't flinch, Caracas must decide how long it can sustain this posture. That's the second-order signal Washington listens for. Not just how many troops are announced, but how long they stay deployed after the first 48 hours. For the timeline, this is the turning point. The claim that a warship had already crossed territorial waters gives way to a clearer picture. A U.S. carrier group operating in international waters. A Venezuelan mobilization designed to shape perception. Don't come closer. If neither side wants a clash, who adjusts first? And how do they do it without looking weak? Will deterrence hold? Let's draw a bright line. As of this recording, there's no confirmed evidence from credible, primary sources that a U.S. warship crossed inside 12 nautical miles of Venezuela's coast without invoking innocent passage. There's no confirmation of kinetic action by U.S. forces inside the territorial sea. Public statements and reputable reporting consistently place U.S. ships in international waters, sometimes within the EEZ, sometimes beyond. So why did in Venezuelan waters trend worldwide? 3 reasons. 1. Loose phrasing. Headlines say Latin American waters, Caribbean waters, near Venezuela, and casual viewers read inside. 2. EEZ confusion. People assume our economic waters equals our sovereign waters. It doesn't. The EEZ extends to 200 miles. Sovereignty stops at 12. 3. Video velocity. A clip of a warning shot or close pass spreads faster than corrections. The algorithm rewards drama, not nuance. None of that makes the situation benign. The closer ships operate to the 12-mile line, the tighter the ROE and the thinner the margin for error. But separating rumor from record matters. If an actual territorial incursion occurred, it would be headline level, time-stamped, and deniable only once. That's not what we're seeing. So what is happening? Mobilizations are loud. Diplomacy is quieter, but consequential. Regional neighbors issue cautionary statements about sovereignty and restraint. Security cooperation partners try to keep joint training and port calls apolitical, even as Caracas publicly blasts countries it accuses of aiding U.S. operations. Economic ties strain. Energy agreements, cross-border trade, as rhetoric turns punitive. Inside multilateral forums, the debate sharpens. Does counter-narcotics enforcement justify heavier military presence, or is it a fig leaf for coercion? Legal experts revisit gray areas. What counts as intelligence collection during innocent passage? Where does maritime law enforcement end and use of force begin? Does declaring smugglers terrorists alter thresholds at sea? At a practical level, deconfliction channels light up. Navy-to-Navy calls, defense attachés, hotlines. Everyone knows the nightmare scenario. A fastboat incident that escalates. A warning burst misunderstood as hostile fire. A radar lock that triggers a response. Diplomatic pressure aims at simple, confidence-building steps. Announce exercises publicly. publish notice to mariners. Route major movements a little wider when feasible. Did the mobilization work? Politically, it reframed the story at home. Caracas showed strength, not passivity. Operationally, the carrier group still holds position in international waters with full freedom to maneuver. The balance after the first shock. Deterrence met by deterrence. Each side adjusting, neither conceding. What happens next? 3 takeaways from Operation Razor's Edge. 1. Proximity is policy. Operating legally just outside 12 nautical miles exerts pressure without crossing sovereignty. Deterrence by presence. The carrier doesn't need to fire a shot, it just needs to be there. 2. Narrative is a weapon. Claims of incursion can mobilize forces, rally supporters, and complicate an adversary's planning, even without a single nautical mile being breached. Perception shapes reality in the social media age. 3. Procedures save lives. Clear rules of engagement, trained bridge teams, rehearsed, graduated response steps. That's what keeps innocent passage from turning into an incident at sea. Short term, expect more ISR flights, more Coast Guard cutters on law enforcement cases, tighter escorts around high-value units. Medium term, watch for back-channel talks about standoff ranges and mutual notifications. Quiet agreements that never make headlines but prevent catastrophes. Long term, the question is whether this becomes the new normal or a prelude to something riskier. A supercarrier operates within striking distance of an adversary's coast. Mobilization orders crackle across state media. 200,000 personnel surge to high alert. Headlines scream invasion. Social media explodes. But no shots are fired. No sovereignty is breached. No red lines are crossed. Yet. Because that's the calculus now. Both sides know the rules. Both sides know the stakes. The difference between peace and war? 6 miles of blue water and 1 bad decision. If a ship pushes inside 12 nautical miles and the other side blinks, who blinks first? That's the question hanging over the Caribbean tonight. If this analysis clarified the fog of war, hit subscribe. Share this breakdown with anyone who needs to separate rumor from reality. Because when supercarriers drift toward coastlines and mobilizations hit 200,000 troops, the truth matters more than ever. Do they hold the line? The answer depends on what happens in the next 72 hours. Stay sharp. Stay informed. We'll be here tracking every move.